He hit Madonna over the head with a baseball bat when they were together. Ask Reddit on Reddit Rundown. What famous person has done something incredibly heinous, but has often been overlooked? Steven Segal. He's a serial sex offender and a fraud. I recommend the Behind the Bastards podcast episode about him. When I was training in Aikido in the 90s, the head of our style was Shihan Fumio Toyota. He would come to do seminars like twice a year and we all would go out to eat and he would tell us stories. Well, Shihan was the person that Segal got his first dan from. Shihan told us when he was in Chicago to film his first movie, he took Shihan out for dinner. We were told Segal was so full of himself that Shihan considered him an asshole. It takes a special kind of person to make an ass of yourself in front of your sensei. Chris Benoit is more known for the circumstances of his death. Long story short, he's a wrestler, received too much chair shots to the head in his career, developed the brain of an 80-plus-year-old man at barely 40, had a breakdown and killed his wife, his son and then himself. Once they learned this, WWE tried to basically bury him and act like he never existed despite the fact that he was an enormous main eventer back then. Everyone is aware of this and it's often debated whether Benoit is a victim or not. But then you have Jimmy Snuka over there who killed his girlfriend in cold blood for seemingly no reasons and this motherfucker is in the Hall of Fame and no one seems to care. P.T. Barnum is usually the first mentioned on this kind of thread, but I don't see him yet. The Greatest Showman was an awesome movie, but it portrayed Barnum in a very positive light. His very first exhibit was a black woman who he bought from an acquaintance of his. Slavery was banned at that time, but he used a loophole to evade that. He ended up holding a live autopsy of the black woman once she died and cut up her body in front of a crowd. He confessed to owning quite a few slaves in his life and whipping them. They worked very long shifts without sufficient breaks. His treatment of animals wasn't very nice either. He had this training method for elephants where he'd shove hot pokers up their trunks. His handlers carried sharp hooks which they used to hurt the elephants. He kept 2 beluga whales in the basement of his museum for a couple days, though this was kept short by them dying. Oh, and the guy with dwarfism in the movie? He was 4 years old when Barnum hired him. Barnum had him drinking wine and smoking for the audience. And he dehumanized his performers a lot. He claimed that people with deformities were part animal or not human at all. Signs would say what is that thing? Etc. He was definitely not Hugh Jackman. Salman Khan, the Indian actor, not the Khan Academy gentleman, killed 1 person and injured 4 other homeless people sleeping on the streets after his car crashed into them. He has also been accused for poaching black bucks, chinkara etc. In addition to this, he has also harassed a well-known actress after they broke up. Every time a lower court convicts him, he appeals to a higher court granting him a bail. F him. F that bastard. In the early 90s, Tom and Roseanne, Arnold, financed a large-scale meth operation in southeast Iowa that ran through Tom's brother-in-law's horse breeding operation. This one doesn't get a lot of publicity, but to the locals, it's just a known fact. Edit, didn't expect this to blow up. Some background information, at the height of their celebrity, Tom and Roseanne spent nearly every weekend in Wapello County, Iowa with his brother-in-law Floyd, who was sentenced to 50-plus years in federal prison for meth. Tom and Roseanne, at the time of the bust, were building a mansion in Eldon, Iowa. Eldon effing Iowa. Anyone from that area knows the only thing in Eldon is and was meth. My personal sources on this are known associates, that did various amounts of time from the bust at Floyd's ranch, his neighbors, and a litany of people who partied with the group in the early 90s. It's assumed by most of those that Tom and Roseanne are the unnamed informants in Floyd's deposition. They stopped building the mansion and just left it abandoned at that time. Roseanne has never been back. Here in Czechia we have folk singer who was acting during communist regime that he was against it. In reality he was collaborating with secret police and reporting dissidents. Yet to this day most of people would call you an envious one if you bring it up again while he is enjoying popularity in Czechia and Poland, receiving a prize by Putin, and creating racist songs against refugees. I hate you, Jaromir Novica. Most rock stars from the 70s, lol. The majority of them were basically pedophiles. Ted Nugent wrote songs about having sex with underage girls. One 13-year-old girl wound up with both David Bowie and Jimmy Page. It's insane how much they got away with. One of Kiss's songs, Christine 16 has this line, "I don't usually say things like this to girls your age, but when I saw you coming out of school that day I knew, I've got to have you. I've got to have you." Literally sounding like a pervert who spends all day creeping around the high school. Melissa Benoist's first husband almost blinded her. So she's been doing the Supergirl TV show for a while now, but a few years back, news came out that she had hurt her eye. She said she had tripped or something had hurt herself at home. Nope, her first husband threw his phone at her in a fit of rage, hit her in the eye, and she almost lost her sight. Glad she left that psycho. Emma Roberts beat the shit out of Evan Peters. Throwaway for reasons because Emma Roberts is a huge bitch. I worked for an ad agency a few years ago that sponsored an internet show which was part of the Comic-Con press junket. Anyways, we had most of the popular shows coming through, with most of their top actors, The Walking Dead, when they were promoting Negan, Game of Thrones, etc. Well, every single actor that came through was super cool. No issues. Except one. We were warned by the show, that when Scream Queens comes in, do not talk to Emma Roberts or take pictures. Now this wasn't the publicist or anything that said this was the show we were sponsoring because of her shitty reputation. Unfortunately, one of the sponsors didn't get the memo and took a picture of Emma. Emma berated her in front of a room of about 30, grabbed the sponsor's phone and made her delete the photo. Mind you, Jamie Lee Curtis and John Stamos are in the room, you know, actual celebrities. TLDR, Emma Roberts is a cunt. Rob Lowe during the height of his popularity was basically a douche canoe. He abandoned Melissa Gilbert when they were engaged and she was pregnant. He would call his agent to hook him up immediately with girls he saw in music videos. Had a threesome with one party who was underage. The last ruined his career for several years. He got his head on straight and rebuilt his career. Only mumbling since were some issues with a housekeeper. Matthew Broderick hit and killed someone with his car in Ireland. This ended his relationship with Jennifer Grey. Natalie Wood was sexually assaulted by a well-known star in her late teens. It is strongly suggested that it was Kirk Douglas by those that knew her. Edit, John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas allegedly sexually assaulted then had a consensual sexual relationship with his daughter Mackenzie Phillips. He also contributed to her drug addiction before these incidents. Edit 2, I would recommend listening to Rob Lowe's autobiography Stories I Only Tell My Friends. He is pretty frank about the stupid stuff he did when he first became famous. He doesn't discuss his relationship with Melissa Gilbert, but gave her permission to discuss it in her autobiography, which was also a good read. Mark Wahlberg was one of the few people in history to violate a civil rights injunction. A civil rights injunction is basically a court order telling someone to stop committing hate crimes. Mark Wahlberg was originally busted as a 15-year-old for attacking fourth graders for being black. 2 years later he robbed and beat a Vietnamese man for being Asian, then beat another man for also being Asian. One of his victims was permanently injured. Then he became Marky Mark. I really don't understand how Andy Dick hasn't been cancelled/Me Too'd. He has been waving his dick where it doesn't belong and touching people inappropriately for 30 years. This isn't even a secret, I guess people just don't think about Andy Dick. During the filming of the Twilight Zone movie, John Landis demanded a scene be shot in the middle of the night and beyond the amount of time that child actors are allowed to work. Paid off their parents in cash from his own pocket. During the scene there were big pyro effects and a helicopter pilot hovering dangerously low. The pilot was trying to keep safe but Landis kept telling him to get lower. Pyro blast damaged the tail rotor of the helicopter, which lost control and crashed, decapitating an actor and one of the children. The second child was crushed to death. Edit, my mistake, the passengers in the helicopter were not killed. You always hear about Pancho Villa, but hardly ever about his right-hand man, Rodolfo Fiore. Fiore loved to kill. He would kill at the first chance and would do so in a casual manner. One time he and another one of his henchmen were arguing as to which direction a man falls when he is shot and killed. They argued, Fiore that the man would fall face first, the henchman that he would fall backward, until all of a sudden Fiore took out his gun and fatally shot a passerby in broad daylight. The man fell face first and Fiore won that argument. How has nobody said Sean Penn? He hit Madonna over the head with a baseball bat when they were together. Broke into her, home when they were on the outs, tied her to a chair with cable, cut off her hair and beat her. Also left her there for like 9 hours apparently and came back to continue. Then he forced her to perform sex acts on him. She managed to get away at some point and get to the cops. But she didn't end up pressing charges. Jared Leto has a fringe group of young women follow him around and refer to him as a leader. His hair is long and flowing, wears some long white smocks. Something is brewing with that. His antics on the set of Suicide Squad are also disgusting, harassment both sexual and non-sexual. And he claims it was all just to be method and get in character. And for what? That which is easily the lowest regarded Joker performance in history. Cesar Romero, Mark Hamill, Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, Joaquin Phoenix, Cameron Monaghan, Kevin Michael Richardson, Troy Baker, John DiMaggio, Zach Galifianakis, Alan Tudyk. All these people have at least been entertaining. Some have been considered masterful and iconic villain portrayals. And Leto was just a goddamn pizza cutter, all edge and no point. Roman Polanski drugged and raped a child, then fled America rather than serve his sentence. Yet Hollywood folks still work with this child rapist and fugitive from justice. France won't extradite him, and people actually say he should be forgiven and allowed back from exile. No, he should be castrated with a rusty knife and left without any medical treatment. Amy Schumer admitted to sexual assaulting a drunk guy and a cab driver. Also groped Bill Burr. He talked about it in a special. Made the joke that no one would give a shit, no one did. There is a debate whether it was Schumer or Chelsea Handler, but both have been brought on similar claims before. Effing Bill O'Reilly called for the execution of an abortion doctor on his program, going so far as to give his home address and the address of the church the dude attended. A lone wolf showed up at his church and executed him. Zero consequences for Fox or O'Reilly. Jon Hamm did some fucked up shit at his fraternity while hazing people. I'm pretty sure he was kicked out of school. This is huge. He was a member of Sigma Nu at Texas. A pledge forgot one of his lines that they're supposed to memorize. Hamm beat the crap out of him with a paddle, leaving him with a fractured spine, kidney damage, etc. He also apparently lit the man's pants on fire. There's a few more pieces to this, if I recall correctly. Crazy. Clint Eastwood pretty much destroyed the career of his ex, Sandra Locke. After they split up, he had her stuff thrown out of their home, changed the locks and posted security guards to keep her out. She sued, and as part of a settlement if she dropped the suit, he convinced a studio to contract her for a multi-film deal with her acting as a producer and director. Except the whole deal was a sham and she never got any of her projects made. Kobe Bryant raped a 19-year-old girl in 2003. When the girl stepped forward, his lawyer said her name in open court 6 times during one hearing. Despite the fact that the girl was meant to remain anonymous. Then tried to make her out to be a harlot that slept around. When the girl finally settled, after media camped out at her parents' home for days, everyone took that as proof she never was assaulted. Then he died and everyone painted him as some sort of saint. It bothered me. Matthew Broderick killed a family in a car crash. It wasn't an accident either. Happened in Ireland where people drive on the left and he was belligerent and insistent on being allowed to drive despite the differences. When the family died, he skipped out on the murder charge and got a lesser one because #rich, and eventually offered to meet the family as condolence but skipped out on that too. To this day he has done nothing as restitution for his actions. This isn't really heinous but something that has always stuck with me. When Katy Perry kissed that boy on American Idol and nothing was ever done about it. This boy said he never kissed a girl and was waiting for the right girl, or he may have even said marriage. Without asking, she kissed him on the lips. He was so visibly taken back by it and uncomfortable, it was a real shame. She took that away from him. It was honestly sexual assault. Think about if a man kissed a young girl on national TV for her first kiss? He would have lost his job, been charged, and lost all his status as a celebrity. Every time I see her or think about that I get so mad. John Stamos admitted in Jane magazine to tricking a girl into having sex with his friend. He bragged that he started making out with this girl in a dark room, got up to brush his teeth and then let his friend go in and have sex with her. No one mentions it. Some dirtbags just get a pass, I guess. Shane Dawson of YouTube fame has multiple photographic, video, and recorded podcast instances of openly sexualizing minors. In one video, he and his then girlfriend are teaching his 12-year-old niece about how to have sex, in which the girlfriend demonstrates on a peep candy marshmallow. He's kissed underage fans. He had a blog where underage fans were encouraged to submit sexy photos to be featured on the blog. He would proceed to comment sexual things on submitted photos. He was in a puppet show series with the Fine brothers for a character puppet named Millie, who alluded to being raped and abused by her dad character. Millie would ask inappropriate questions to Shane, to which Shane would explain very adult topics to what was supposed to be an underage girl. Many speculated that Millie represented many of the girls in Shane's audience at the time. Shane would also say sexual things to the puppet. On a few podcasts of Shane and Friends, he discusses being sexually attracted to children. He also once tells a story of ejaculating onto his cat. There are a few videos of him sexualizing animals by humping them or mentioning how they look. There is one video instance where a young girl is encouraged to wear fake breasts, with Shane commenting on how good she looks with them and then encouraging her to let a dog in the room lick them. This goes on and on. Another YouTuber named D'Angelo Wallace put together a very in-depth compilation of all of this. There has been backlash against Shane, and he was given a suspected 6-month demonetization on YouTube. None of this has led to any legal involvement or enough calls for it. Mel Gibson had a series of incredibly racist and anti-Semitic rants, but is still in movies. One rant was while being pulled over for drunk driving, and another was from a recording of him threatening his girlfriend for wearing something he deemed promiscuous. "You look like a pig in heat. If you get raped by a pack of N-words, it's your fault. Don't know why that was all forgotten." Thanks for listening to Reddit Rundown. Give a thumbs up and subscribe, and help me get to 1,000 subs. Leave a comment below on what kind of topics or stories you would like to hear. You can also check out other videos on my channel. Thanks and have an awesome day.